Hey everybody, this is Valencia and welcome to my channel Balloons and Business, where I show you the business of balloon and event decor. So today I'm going to show you how I made this black and gold 50th birthday setup from start to finish. And I also wanted to give some tips on how to work with a short backdrop. So if you want to see how I made this, just stay tuned. So due to the balloon shortage, I had to go through 3 different brands to get the same color balloons in all 3 sizes I needed. So I'm going to start by blowing up my balloons 2 at a time. Then I'm going to press them firmly against the ground to release some air to round out the balloons, and then I'm going to tie them together into dupes. Since this is an outdoor event, it is important for me to make sure that the balloons are not overinflated, especially the color black. It was 100 degrees this day, so if the balloons are overinflated, they will expand in the heat and are more prone to popping. I also wanted to make sure I had enough slack at the necks when I tied the balloons together so that they'll be easy to maneuver when I make my balloon garland base. Now once I'm done tying all my balloons together into dupes, I'm going to take my dupes and I'm going to twist them together into clusters. Now when you're twisting these balloons together, you want to make sure you twist them into the cluster at least 2 times. If you only do it once, the dupes are more likely to pop out of the cluster. So make sure you're twisting them into that cluster at least twice to make sure that they're nice and secure in there. And I twisted together about 8 dupes of balloons per cluster. I twisted about 3 dupes of the 17-inch balloons and 5 dupes of the 12-inch balloons, which makes for a total of 16 balloons per cluster. Once I've twisted all of my balloons into clusters, I'm going to take one neck from one balloon in one cluster and a neck from another balloon in another cluster, and I'm going to tie the 2 necks together. This is why I talked about leaving enough slack at the neck when you're tying your dupes, because you want to make it as easy as possible for you to be able to grab a neck inside of those clusters and tie them together. If you'd like, you can tie more than one neck from each cluster together for extra security. But this is how I connected my balloon garland base. And this balloon garland was about 7 feet long. Now I want to show you in detail how I'm going to attach these orbs. I'm using a 160 balloon. This is from Simpertex, and I'm going to cut it in half. Then I'm going to double tie 1/2 of that 160 around the base of this gold orb, and you want to make sure you double tie it because they will slip off of the base, and then wrap the 2/2 of the 160 around one of the balloons in the garland and tie them together. When attaching the small orbs balloons, you can run one of them 160s through the small hole that's on the orb and then double tie for security, and then do the same thing. Now I made some small pearl clusters with my 5-inch balloons, and you can check out some of my other videos on how I made that, but I just cut a 160 in half, and I took 1/2 of that 160 and tied it around one end of that cluster, and then the other half I tied it around the other end of that cluster, and then I attached it to the balloon garland by just wrapping each end around a balloon in the balloon garland base. I will be using duct tape to attach this vinyl backdrop to my backdrop stand. Now in a previous video, I talked about my frustration with using these black backdrop stands. Now I purchased 3 of them. This is one of the newer ones. The other one was older and I used it for several events, so I'm just gonna assume that it had given out and run its course. But I did end up getting the pipe and drape backdrop stand, and I will be doing a review on that. Now I'm going to take a backdrop clamp and I'm going to put a 160 balloon in the mouth of that clamp, and then I'm going to double tie that 160 balloon around it. Then I'm going to put it onto the backdrop at several points, and that's how I'm going to attach the balloon garland. I'm going to take one half of the 160 and wrap it around one end of the balloon garland. Take another half and wrap it around the other end and tie the two halves together. Now I'm rearranging the balloon garland and playing with the shape of it. I added that large cluster of balloons at the bottom to make sure that the garland was touching the ground. I'm also rearranging my 5-inch pearl clusters and making sure that those gold orbs can be seen because the color scheme is black and gold. Now originally I was going to put some balloons in between those marquee numbers, but I decided not to do that, and I decided to cascade those balloons over the number 0. Now this vinyl backdrop was 5 feet tall by 7 feet wide, so I had to lift the backdrop about 1.5 feet above the ground to make sure it was kind of tall enough to take pictures. So I decided to make 2 balloon garlands on the side instead of make like a typical L shape, because I didn't want to shorten this backdrop up anymore. It kind of elongates this backdrop by making the balloon garlands go upward instead of up and over. So now I'm using good old high shine to restore the shininess to these balloons. Black balloons oxidize so bad outside, and I believe the high shine really elevated this overall look. Lastly, those clear light balloons that I added were supposed to be gold confetti balloons, but it's hard to pick up on camera. So here's the finished product to this 50th birthday balloon backdrop setup. As I mentioned before, the balloon shine really elevated this overall look. Now the color scheme was black and gold, but I wanted to do something different than my typical Calisand mirror gold balloons that I usually get. So I decided to add these gold orbs, and I really think they worked beautifully with this balloon garland. Now one thing I could have done without are the gold confetti balloons that I made. They're not really giving what they were supposed to give. You don't really see the gold flakes on there, and that's because I should have put some more substance inside of the balloons to really make the confetti stick. So if you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, go ahead on and like it, and please subscribe, and you'll get notifications on future videos on balloon and event decor. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.